Game 4 of the NBA Finals is going to go down in the history books as one of the greatest games, certainly in Warriors history, arguably in the rankings, in the top 5 or 10 or whatever you want to call it of NBA Finals games. It was historic. It's going to go in the annals of the books, and Kylen Mills was there to see it. So she's going to share some incredible stories, and we're going to obviously preview Game 5 because this series is not over. That's the really wild part about all this. Despite everything the Warriors accomplished in Game 4, they still got to win 2 more. So we're going to break that down and then some. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. You can follow KRON 4 sports anchor Kylen Mills on Twitter at Kylen Mills. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow. Kylen, I did a post-game immediate reactionary show with Hall of Famer Rick Barry, San Jose Mercury News analyst and reporter Janelle Moore. But we've had a couple days now to kind of process and reflect on what was just an incredible Game 4. Dub Nation, I feel like 50 years from now, we'll be thinking back to this game and hopefully smiling, provided this series ends the way we all hope it does. But Kylen, what was your first reaction and what was your first takeaway and just your general takeaway from that, again, in my opinion, was a historic Game 4 victory for the Golden State Warriors?
Yeah, historic for sure. Cyrus, thanks for having me back. Always good to chat with you. There are no words for what Steph Curry did in Game 4 of the NBA Finals. My instant reaction was just jaw on the ground watching what he did, especially in that fourth quarter. The numbers he's been putting up throughout this series are incredibly impressive. But to go the way he did, putting up 43 points, 10 rebounds too, he was getting it done on the boards. He's been putting up great numbers as far as both field goals and three-pointers. Just the way that he came out with a fire in his eyes in that game, and then again in the fourth quarter, just icing it, putting the Warriors on his back. It was just truly incredible. It was an all-time performance. Klay Thompson called it Steph Curry's greatest NBA Finals performance, which coming from his teammate, Klay Thompson, that's saying a lot. Curry has just been incredible throughout the finals, but to me, that just cemented, I don't even know. Like I said, it's hard to put into words just how incredible it was to watch it firsthand. You could see from the beginning of the game just how emotional he was and how invested Steph Curry was. First quarter, like he got an and one, or I can't remember because he got no fouls called against him. So that's another thing that stood out to me is that he's been getting no calls in not just the NBA Finals, but in Boston. It was atrocious, if you ask me. He was getting straight up shoved and not getting any calls. But I could go on a completely separate tangent about that. But, just even in the first quarter, a couple big shots and he's going up, motioning at the crowd. And like, that's not typical Steph Curry. You'll see that later in the game, maybe after a couple big buckets. But like, he came out with a very, very noticeable passion and fire lit under his butt for this game. My biggest takeaway is just what a performance by Steph Curry. Number two, though, I want to mention two players that I think were really, really key. They've been that way this entire playoffs run, but especially in Game 4, Kevon Looney and Andrew Wiggins really crashing the boards and being so physical and just both being enforcers for the Warriors. They don't win this game without those two. So I think that needs to be mentioned just because, finals aren't just won and lost in the stars. It's the role players coming through and becoming stars themselves or, just really stepping up and going beyond what their typical expected roles are. 17 and 16 for Wiggs, incredible. And Kevon Looney, I remember when the first time he subbed in the game, I think he had 5 rebounds in the first quarter, 5 rebounds in 7 minutes in the first quarter. And I noticed right away that he was crashing. Even the balls he wasn't grabbing for boards, he was tipping to teammates. He was making it difficult for the Celtics. So hats off again to those two because they were key to this Warriors victory.
Oh, absolutely. You started the show magnificently with those descriptions. You're absolutely right. Andrew Wiggins, again, to have a career high 16 rebounds, to go along with those 17 points. He was just a monster inside. Kevon Looney, as you mentioned, there's been mixed reactions about Kerr's decision to start Otto Porter Jr. In Kevon Looney's place, and it's hard to blame him because there's this one stat that shows that the most effective lineup for the Golden State Warriors in this finals and overall playoffs has been a 5-unit that includes Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, and Otto Porter Jr. When those 5 are on the court, they have an insane 76% effective field goal percentage. In 45 minutes together, they have a 140 offensive rating. I mean, those 5 clearly dominate when they're out there. I did not personally support it just because, and I think Kerr's kind of realized this too. For every minute that Robert Williams III is out there, you have to match Kevon Looney with him. You have to. He's the one man that does man up with Robert Williams III. Like literally, and Looney's hands are incredible. I feel like the moment his hands touch the ball, he's not losing possession of it. And the moment Looney came into the game, I think with that starting 5, the Warriors started off down 12-6. You saw Looney come into the game fairly fast, and then it turned around shortly after that. But again, Stephen Curry, I mean, this performance was the stuff of legends. It was just, I think it silenced a lot of his critics. I would be very surprised if on Monday morning, Skip Bayless, for example, who routinely criticizes him, and I think his hatred of Steph goes back to the fact that he hates any reference of LeBron James and Michael Jordan in the same sentence. And I think he has disdain for Stephen Curry for not defeating LeBron James in 2016 because it opened the door for all these LeBron fans to keep calling him the GOAT. I really think that's the reasoning behind it, or at least a huge part of it. But I don't think his critics like Skip Bayless, I don't think they're going to have any justification for continuing this line of reasoning that Steph isn't clutch, that Steph doesn't carry the team. Because Stephen Curry became he became the 5th guard in NBA Finals history to score over 40 points and grab 10 or more rebounds in a single game, ever. That alone is incredible. He became the first player in the history of the NBA Finals to have 40 or more points, 10 or more rebounds, and 7 or more three-pointers made in an NBA Finals game. That's staggering. So everything you said is absolutely right. What do you think about Game 5?
Can I
Go
add
ahead. Sorry, yeah, jump in, please.
Curry?
Yeah, please.
Another thing I want to mention is that what Steph Curry was doing in Game 4 wasn't at any fault of the Boston Celtics. Like, they were playing really hard defense on him. They did not let up for 1 second. He was tightly marked. He was double teamed. And that also is what made his performance so impressive to me. All Steph Curry needs is the tiniest bit of space to hit shots, and he proved that in Game 4. I saw a stat that Curry is shooting 54% on tightly contested field goals and 61% on tightly contested threes, while attempting the most tightly contested shots of any player in the NBA Finals.
Incredible.
To me, that's an incredible stat because, the Boston defense is all over him. They were all over him, especially in the 4th quarter of that game, based on how hot he was for the entire first 3 quarters. And he still finds ways to score. And if he's not hitting the 3 just by creating 1 step of space, he had some mid-range shots. He's driving to the hoop and getting these crazy finishes like he always does. I mean, he's just unstoppable.
Yep, I totally agree. This was very much, I saw someone post something on Twitter. I forgot who it was, but I really love the metaphor. And they were comparing Stephen Curry to Kobe Bryant in the sense that Kobe's first 3 championships, he won those with Shaquille O'Neal. I don't want to take anything away from Kobe for those first 3 titles, but Shaq did win Finals MVP those first 3 years. And I don't think Kobe really inserted himself as an individual into these arguments for greatest ever, or at least being in the top 10 or being on a Mount Rushmore, whatever categories you want to label these things, until he won those 2 titles without Shaq. I mean, Pau Gasol was a great Robin, but it's night and day between Pau and Shaq. And Steph's performance, he carried this Warriors team. But other players obviously deserve a lot of accolades. We talked about these rebounding numbers. Andrew Wiggins had a monster game. Steph was incredibly the 3rd leading rebounder on the team with 10, but the Warriors rebounding was incredible. I mean, they bounced back from that atrocious Game 3 where they got killed on the glass. They beat the Celtics 55-42 on the glass, 16-11 on the offensive boards. And that's where Draymond Green, despite the fact that 3 of the 4 games in the series offensively, he's been borderline atrocious. He did at least redeem himself in the sense that he still grabbed those 9 rebounds. He did have 8 assists. He made that one clutch putback on a Looney miss, funny enough. And it was just a remarkable game 4. You're right. There's no way to put it into words appropriately. There just isn't, because it
Yeah.
was just, I don't know how you can. It was just really just a mind-blowing game. Yeah. So real quick here, I want to give some love for people who want to save money. There's one great way to do that, and that's TrueBill. Kylen, have you downloaded that app yet or gone to the website? Have you tried TrueBill?
No, not yet, but I definitely need to save money. So
Yeah, we all do.
throw that information out there, Cyrus, because I'll have to hop on this as soon as we get done.
It's a phenomenal way to save money. I when I finally used it, it turns out I saved over $1,000 annually, because what TrueBill does is basically find all the things you subscribe to,
Mhm.
all the
I
things you're
need that.
paying for that you're not even aware of. Like, I didn't realize I had 2 Netflix subscriptions that I was paying for. I didn't realize I had a bunch of Amazon monthly like subscriptions that I just kept having stuff ordered to me that I just did not want time and time and again. There were 3 or 4 different bills that I just really did not realize I was paying for until I tried TrueBill. They're a new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with TrueBill. Like I said, I saved, I think, $1,100 approximately. And because companies make these subscriptions that are hard to cancel, TrueBill makes it incredibly easy. You just link your accounts, and TrueBill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. Don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at truebill.com/lockedonnba. Go right now, truebill.com/lockedonnba. It could save you thousands a year.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. The ultimate NBA mock draft starts June 16th, and with over 50 insiders, nothing equals the ultimate NBA mock draft. The Locked On NBA Big Board draft experts, plus the Odyssey insiders, are going to be part of it. First pick is June 16th, so search Ultimate NBA Mock Draft and follow now so you don't miss a pick. You can follow Kylen Mills on Twitter at Kylen Mills, KRON 4 Sports anchor. She was on the scene in Boston covering Game 4. So let's talk about Game 5, because clearly, I mean, as big of a game as Game 4 was, now they have to play another one. And Game 5, I mean, all these people were throwing these stats about Game 3 and the winner of that game, like 82% or 83% of the time goes on winning the series. And I was telling people after that game, just blow that stat away. That is worthless. It means nothing to the Golden State Warriors. Game 5 has a very different meaning, because if the Warriors lose Game 5, I do think they're in a whole world of trouble. I don't think they're going to lose that game, though. What is your initial thoughts? What is your initial prognosis? Anything you're looking for as Game 5 comes to Chase Center tomorrow night?
The key to Game 5 for me, Cyrus, I don't think there's any tactical secret to this series at this point. The key to this game and every game throughout is going to be which team brings the most fire, which team brings the most force, and which team brings the most physicality. To me, throughout the first 4 games of this series, it's the team that has brought those things that has ended up winning the game. And the Celtics, yeah, they tried to serve it up to the Warriors, but the Warriors just hit back harder in Game 4. And it started with Steph Curry setting the tone early in the game. I mentioned the emotion we saw from him when he was firing up the crowd. He was really battling. And then, some of the other role players, I mentioned Kevon Looney coming in the first quarter, and really he was mixing it up and crashing the glass. And he talked about, needing to try to offset Robert Williams III, which is absolutely a factor. But to me, the Warriors came out playing much more intense and much more physical than they did in Game 3, and they end up winning Game 4. So for me, the biggest factor is just which team is going to bring the higher intensity. Today we heard from head coach Steve Kerr, and that's exactly what he said. He said the key to tomorrow's game, and for him, he specifically pointed out defensive intensity. When we start to, let up a little bit on defense, that's when the Celtics punish us for that. And you also look at some mistakes, like a couple of costly fourth quarter turnovers that I noticed in game 3, and cleaning up some mistakes like that, I think, as well, and getting into foul trouble early. Another thing the Warriors just need to try to avoid. But the biggest overarching theme is bringing the intensity, bringing the physicality, because these are two very skilled basketball teams. Like I said, I just don't think tactically you can make some adjustments. I don't think there's any big secret or key at this point in that regard. I just think it's going to be which team wants it more. And to me, the Warriors clearly wanted it more, and specifically Steph Curry wanted it more in game 4. What's going to happen in game 5? Kerr talked about on defense, the Warriors having to be quicker closing out. We saw the three-pointers kill them earlier in the series. That's something they have to really continue to focus on. Closing out, being quicker on rotations. He said you've got to be a step ahead, not a step behind. Again, we're talking about a very skilled Celtics team. They will punish you. If you, like I said, if you get behind or you are lackadaisical at all on defense, mixing it up on boards, we just talked about rebounding. That's going to be one of the hugest factors to this series. The games that we've seen the Warriors get out rebounded and beat up a little bit on the glass, they lose. So I think that these are, and just the hustle plays as well. In game 3, I feel like, again, I was there courtside, and one thing you notice is it felt like the Celtics were getting a lot of those hustle plays. They were on the right end of all of those hustle plays, diving on the floor, and again, just the team that wanted it more. So to me, those factors are going to be what determines who wins game 5. And I agree with you that the Warriors lose game 5. They're in a very tough position with a must-win game going back to TD Garden. And after seeing how hostile that environment was, how loud that arena was, it is a very, very, very difficult place to play. And if you're looking at a team that's wanting to close out the NBA Finals, you're in a, must-win situation. I just think a game 6, down 3-2 heading to TD Garden would be extremely dangerous for the Warriors. They've got to go up and win tomorrow at home. And the Chase Center crowd, you guys got to bring it, man. Like, TD Garden was something else. I know we're going to get into some stories later, Cy, but the noise level was just something I've never experienced in almost any sporting event. It was so loud. I don't know if it's just, I was talking to some other media members. We're like, is it the acoustics? Is it just the fans? But I mean, the fans brought it. Like, they brought it. There's no question about that. Kudos to Celtics fans. I know some people think they crossed the line. I tend to agree with some of the chanting, but hey, their passion is out there, and it absolutely makes it more difficult for the opponents.
Oh, I love the East Coast sports energy. I always tell people I feel like I was an East Coast boy who grew up on the West Coast, at least in terms of sports and the passion that comes with that. They know their sports. They love their sports. I totally agree with you that some of the antics were incredibly classless, very immature. But what I saw from the Golden State Warriors, first of all, I don't think the Warriors are going to lose game 5. I've been harping on this, whether I've been making guest appearances on other shows or talking on our show, Locked On Warriors. The Golden State Warriors, when it comes to Eastern Conference opponents, they have a hard time preparing for them. And what I mean by that is, in the regular season, teams don't usually have the opportunity to fully prepare for upcoming opponents, especially Eastern Conference teams, simply because oftentimes there's only a day between games. Oftentimes it's in the middle of a road trip. So you're spending very few minutes studying film. You don't have the time to properly really analyze the opponent. And oftentimes you're playing that game and then you move on. So when these two teams met in the NBA Finals, they were not very familiar with each other. And in my opinion, just from my observation skills, it's taken 4 games for the Warriors to finally figure out this Celtics team. And here's what I think they figured out. Number one is Kevon Looney can neutralize Robert Williams III. They just have to match up with each other minute by minute. And if they do that, Kevon Looney has proven, and what a player he is. And I mean, the Iron Man of this team, in a lot of ways, he's really absorbed some of that heart and soul that Draymond Green usually bears responsibility of. And he has just had a phenomenal series and a phenomenal postseason outside of round 1. But Andrew Wiggins has been huge in the sense that his defense on not on Jason Tatum, on Jaylen Brown is indispensable. Jaylen Brown, as crazy as it sounds, has been more difficult of a player to defend for the Warriors than Jason Tatum.
I agree. I said that to my husband today. I just said that exact thing.
he's physical, he's big, he's making a lot of clutch baskets. He's given the Warriors a lot of problems, but the Warriors have an antidote for him. Two of them, in fact. One of those is Andrew Wiggins. When Wiggins guards him, there's a level of effectiveness there, and he causes Jaylen Brown problems. So you need to have Wiggins out there at all times when Jaylen Brown is out there. And I think Kerr started to figure that out. Draymond Green, who has been clearly the most perplexing piece of the Golden State Warriors in this series so far, just because he's been disappointing. He has been a colossal disappointment. But he does, even though Jaylen Brown has been scoring off Draymond Green, none of those baskets are easy. It's taken a physical toll on Jaylen Brown when Draymond is guarding him. And here's what I am very confident in saying in Game 5. Draymond Green will have a Game 2 performance in Game 5. I have the utmost confidence in that. I saw Draymond Green figuring things out, especially in that fourth quarter. I think he needed a bit of that humble pie in terms of being benched on some of those offensive possessions and being reminded that he is not a perfect player. He is, even though he's going to be a Hall of Famer someday, he is still just a human being. I don't know if like those Boston crowds actually got to him a little bit. I don't know if his ego got bruised a little bit just from all the attention. Again, he's just a human being, but we've seen this side of Draymond that we haven't seen before, which is a beaten Draymond Green. But he also started to figure things out. I think he's kind of realized that offensively, he can't attack Robert Williams III. Even Horford gives him some problems when he attacks. But at the same time, one thing Draymond that has not been doing, that he started doing at the end of Game 4, is instead of loitering around the three-point line, instead of loitering at the top of the key and even beyond, when he's making passes, he's cutting now toward the basket. And that opened a lot of things up for Steph. That opened a lot of things up for Klay as well in the perimeter. Whereas before, for some reason, Draymond would make a pass and just stand around. And I don't know why he was doing that. I really believe, I am incredibly confident in saying this, that in Game 5, Draymond Green will have a performance similar to Game 2. I think with the Warriors championship pedigree, they smell blood in the water. There will not be a letdown performance. The Celtics have not lost 2 straight in this entire postseason. Game 5 will be the first time they lose 2 straight. I'm very confident in that. I'm just, based on following this team as much as I have and seeing them as much as I have, I saw enough in Game 4 where I think they got over that hurdle, and I'm confident in them figuring this Celtics team, who is incredibly respectable as an opponent, but they figured them out. I think just the Warriors are just a better team. And I think they're going to win ultimately. We're going to break this down a lot more. I have to give some love first to BetOnline, a very long-time sponsor of this program. They're your number one source for all your betting stats and sports information. You can find all the latest sports developments, news, and odds, including, obviously, the NBA Finals, where the line, by the way, is out for Game 5. And just like with all the other games, it's pretty much a toss-up. The home teams are getting, on average, 3 points. And in Game 5, the Warriors are favored by 3.5. The money line is minus 170 for the Warriors, plus 150 for the Celtics. The over-under is 212. Kylen, anything stick out to you there that looks good for you?
If I was a betting woman, which I try not to be, Cyrus, but I would actually put my money on the Warriors because I agree with you. I think the Warriors win tomorrow. And I mean, the 3.5 isn't too much where I don't feel comfortable putting my money on that for them to win by more than 3.5 points. I think the Warriors know what's on the line. And to me, the way they closed out, that momentum should carry from Game 4 into Game 5. You mentioned the Celtics seeming a little bit demoralized.
Yes.
And I think that Game 4 I think there was a hit to their confidence, which is a big factor. They came into this series, I think, riding the high from Game 7 against the Heat. They came in extremely confident and ready to take one in the Warriors' house, and that's exactly what they did. They came out and they hit hard. They didn't give up in that first game, and then after winning that game, after winning Game 1 the way they did by battling in the fourth quarter, that's a huge confidence boost for any team. When you go down like that and you battle back and earn that comeback victory, Game 1 on the road in the NBA Finals, I think they've been riding that high, and even though they lose Game 2, I think they're happy with the split, at Chase Center, heading back to their home floor, which is a very difficult environment for opponents. To me, what I saw in Game 4 was a shot to the confidence level of the Boston Celtics. And I think that's also a big factor. Yes, they've not yet lost back-to-back games, but the reactions and the way they lost in Game 4, I think has been different than previous games in the postseason. And I think the Warriors do have an upper hand going into this game because of some of that. So I like the Warriors, and I like putting your money on 3.5. I'd feel good about it.
I totally agree with you. I think they will cover that spread. I don't know about the over/under. That seems weird to me because yeah, it's just hard to pick. But regardless, you can go to betonline.net to bet on all the sports action, regardless of whether or not you're a basketball fan or you love the NHL Hockey Conference Finals, which are going on, Major League Baseball, MMA, UFC, boxing. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, it's where the game starts.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. Make sure to go check out the Locked On NBA Big Board. Host Rafael Barlow from NBA Draft Junkies and author of the NBA Big Board newsletter is joined by Richard Stamen, Sam Ferris, and Leif Thulin, giving fans an in-depth look into the NBA draft, mock draft, player rankings, and of course the big boards. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. So is Kylen Mills on Twitter. You can follow her on Twitter at Kylen Mills. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, at Dog Surf Roadshow. I just want to finish up my thought, Kylen, in terms of why I think the Warriors have figured this Celtics team out and why I think they're going to win Game 5. Another thing that Steve Kerr, and I don't know why he was stubborn in Game 3 about this, but as weird as this sounds, and I do love the fact that the Celtics fan base is so loud when they win, and they suddenly crawl and hide into their turtle shells when they lose, because you don't hear a peep from them when the Warriors win. But they were mocking me for throwing two names out there repeatedly that do have a huge impact in this series. One of those being Gary Payton II, who even offensively, he does not put up huge numbers, but he always just has a knack for being at the right place or for doing the right thing. A case in point here, that beautiful behind the back pass to Stephen Curry when he could have put up a three himself, but instead he did the behind the back pass to Steph, set up the screen, and Steph hit that dagger three. That was just part of his magnificent performance in Game 4. So Gary Payton II, I do think deserves more than 10 minutes, but at least he's getting minutes. I would prefer he gets 20 to 25, but Steve Kerr is thankfully playing him now. And another player is Nemanja Bjelica, who, again, the stats do not justify him playing. But one stat does stick out, which is absolutely insane. And again, Bjelica had a marvelous performance in Game 4 in just under 10 minutes of play. He held Jason Tatum to 0 for 5 shooting, and he forced Jason Tatum to 4 turnovers in this series. That is absolutely mind-blowing, but it's indicative of his value for this Golden State Warriors team. And just a few more stats, and I'm going to throw it right back to you, Kylen. Thank you so much for letting me talk so much here. Another thing that really sticks out to me as well, and that Game 1 kills me because the Warriors should have won that game as well before they just gave everything up in that fourth quarter, and they just did not adjust accordingly. But the Warriors have shot only 25.9% on corner threes in these NBA Finals. In the Western Conference playoffs, they shot 35.2% on corner threes. And during the regular season, it was 34.1. That number is going to go up. That number will eventually even itself out. Meanwhile, the Celtics three-point shooting in this series overall is at 42.4%. These guys, for some reason, are not missing ever. I feel like they never miss threes. They're gonna come back to earth, and it's gonna happen, I think, sooner than later. And one last thing I want to throw out there as well, in regard to the three-point shooting. The Warriors have shot in terms of wide open threes. They've only shot 33.3% so far. That number is going to go up in Game 5. In the regular season with wide open threes, they shot 39%. And in the Western Conference playoffs, they shot 42.1% when they have open looks. That number will go up. They're going to make their shots in Game 5. Draymond Green will play a much better game in Game 5. And coupled with a fantastic bench, you might even see Iguodala play some important minutes. Otto Porter Jr. has been playing fantastic. We've talked about Kevon Looney. I am of the utmost confidence that the Warriors will win Game 5. And then I think with that momentum, there's a very strong likelihood they will close the series out in Game 6 back in Boston. But even if they lose that game, they will not lose another home game in this series. That is my diatribe. That is my rant for why the Warriors will win Game 5. Anything you'd like to add to that, Kylen, on top of what I just said?
I think the Warriors win in Game 5. I'm not as confident as you, Cyrus, but I do think they have the upper hand. I see this going home the rest of the way to close out the series. I just think that playing in Boston, just incredibly tough environment. And the Celtics haven't lost back-to-back games in the playoffs. I am hard-pressed to picture them losing 3 straight games in the postseason, not to mention on their home court, with their backs against the wall. So I wouldn't be surprised if the series goes to 7, but I think that the Warriors, like you said, I agree with you. The Warriors will close it out, and I think they do win. The Celtics, man, they have been lights out throughout this series. I mean, how about Derek White coming off the bench and just dropping dimes? I mean, Incredible. He's been ridiculous. In Game 4, I think he was 3 for 5 from beyond the arc. I don't remember his exact numbers for all of the previous 3 games, but I would say, I don't know if you have his average from the entire series, but he's a player that stands out to me that's like, wow, you don't necessarily look at him right off the bat as being a huge problem, but he's been a problem and he's contributed some massive minutes and been putting up, double digits off the bench, 16 points in, I think it was in Game 4 and every single game in that Game 1 win. Derek White was just on fire in that fourth quarter. So to me, he's one player that I'm like, is he going to come back down to earth? Is he going to, be someone the Warriors have to still worry about? But the Celtics as a whole have been lights out in this series for sure. And I said after Game 1, I'm like, if they keep shooting like this from 3, then they deserve to win. Like if Al Horford and some of these guys who are not usually 3-point shooters continue shooting like this, they deserve to win the series.
Yep.
The Warriors have found a way to win despite the fact that they're still shooting well. Like the Celtics are still shooting well. Like they didn't shoot poorly. I think they were close to 40% from 3 in Game 4. But it's promising the Warriors are able to win regardless. And I think that they continue to sharpen up and really close out quicker and just fix some of the little things that we saw them lag off on in that fourth quarter of Game 1. And I think it's made a difference, and the numbers have come down a little bit. But, kudos to the Celtics and to Boston because they've been hitting shots when they need to. I mean, it's been kind of surprising and impressive, but they've been, and it's just funny to me that it's not necessarily Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Tatum had a good game in Game 4. I think he hit 50 from 3, but overall in the series, both him and Jaylen Brown have been hitting okay from deep, but it's like the role players to me, Cyrus, that have been like the big surprise.
Agreed. It's been shocking. Derek White, just put in perspective, in the 4 games in these NBA finals, in Game 1, he shot, hold on, let me get this right. In Game 1, he shot 62.5% from 3. That was when we went 5 for 8, which was ridiculous. In Game 2, he shot 50% from 3. He did not make a 3 in Game 3, but they still won despite that. And then in Game 4, he shot 60% from beyond the arc. To put it in perspective, Derek White on the regular season shot just 31.2% from 3.
Mm-hmm.
And even in these playoffs overall, he's only shooting 33.3%, which just gives you an idea of just how ridiculous these numbers are. And that's where at a certain point, these things do average out. And the Celtics, I just do not see them sustaining this. If it goes 6 or 7 games, they're gonna come back to earth, and I think Game 5 is where that really starts. Ime Udoka, I've never heard him speak the way he did. I mean, that is one of the most confident head coaches in the NBA. He's a brash individual, and even he was kind of perplexed. I've not seen that individual at a loss for words, but he had a hard time explaining what happened after Game 4. Momentum is a beautiful thing in sports, and it's a real thing in sports. And I think the Warriors have all of it right now. I want to play this soundbite real quick. Just to this was from Klay Thompson, which just kind of highlights Stephen Curry's just incredible performance. Because Klay's a splash brother. They've been through all these wars together, and I thought this heartfelt attribution was just a beautiful thing from Klay Thompson. Stephen Curry's splash brother. Here he is.
Have you seen Steph play with or show that amount of emotion before? And what did you see from how he took over this game?
I think I have seen him show that much emotion, and the heart on that man is incredible. The things he does, we kind of take for granted from time to time, but to go out there and put us on his back. And I mean, we got to help him out on Monday. So wow, just showed why he is shocking. He wasn't a first team All-NBA guy, but whatever.
I love that shot, by the way, too, at the media. I agree. It is shocking to me he was a first team All NBA. And Klay Thompson, yeah.
I just I can't justify that.
It's crazy. It's the disrespect is so real. I've never seen a player receive less superstar treatment from the officials than Stephen Curry. Here's my gripe with the officials ultimately, right? Is there are a lot of calls in these playoffs that are like, you shrug your shoulders. It could go either way. These are 50-50 calls. Mm-hmm. And I am of the belief, and I believe this confidently, and I say this with conviction, that when a call is a 50-50 call, you give the benefit of the doubt to the team that is a dynasty, to the player that is going to be one of the greatest of all time. And we've seen this type of treatment with Michael Jordan. We've seen it with LeBron James. We see it with Kevin Durant. And we don't see it with Stephen Curry, and we don't see it with these Golden State Warriors. It is mind-boggling to me. I don't understand why this level of disrespect continues, but it is what it is, and the Warriors have to overcome not just their opponent on a nightly basis, but also oftentimes the officials. Kylen, you were at Game 4, and there was a lot of talk about people flipping off the team bus. There's obviously the chants at the arena. You were texting me some really crazy stories. Describe your experience for games 3 and 4 in Boston, of just the arena, the Garden, the fans, all of it.
It was quite the experience. You mentioned it earlier in the program, like Boston fans. I feel like East Coast fans are like this a lot in general. They know what they're talking about. They're super passionate. And they don't hold anything back when it comes to cheering on their teams, right? Like they got a little bit of that, New England attitude with them too. It was wild. So I actually think that Friday night was a little bit wilder than Wednesday, with it being a weekend night. But you show up and there's just green across the entire street, and they're like, isn't even a huge bar and restaurant area, but they're just some bars kind of lined up around the street, and people are just everywhere. It was just a mob scene of green. And I get out the car and I'm like, oh my goodness, wow. And these people, especially Wednesday night, caught me off guard, because there were a lot of people who were very, very intoxicated. It was tip-off was 9 p.m. So I think there was a little bit of extra time, to kill. Maybe if you got off work, you were going to the game. There were a lot of people who looked like they've been overserved. People who weren't still were just kind of crazy energy. So I got my camera out, and I was trying to shoot outside the entrance, maybe a little less than an hour before tip off, to get some fan video or whatever for KRON 4. And people were coming up, getting in my face, yelling stuff in front of my camera, cussing, touching me. I was like, nope, I'm done. I'm out. I was just like,
touched you?
No. Yes. Oh my God. Yes. People just have no concept of personal space, coming up, hey, and I'm like, nope, I'm out. And granted, this was in a massive crowd, and I'm trying to, shoot amongst drunk fans. So like I said, there's always a risk. I tweet this too. There's always a risk anywhere that you're going into a crowd of potentially, like I said, fans who've had some beverages, but this was just a next level. And then also, so my husband, Charlie Walter, sports anchor at KPIX, went outside during the game. And I told you this story, Cy, but I think it's worth mentioning just because it was kind of,
please.
That he went outside during the game. It was technically 6 o'clock back on the West Coast. It was just after 9. So the game had just tipped off. He went outside with his photographer to do a little live shot for a 6 o'clock newscast. A guy came up to him and a Celtics fan came up to him and was trying to fight him. It was like, hey, you want to go? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And Charlie's I couldn't tell if he was joking or not. And he was kind of no, man, we're not trying to fight. And the guy kept getting in his face. So he kind of tried to move away or whatever, because they're about to go live.
Oh my God.
And he's live. Charlie's live. The guy kind of follows them and is lingering or whatever. And he's like, oh, you want to fight me? Whatever. And
that's awful.
Jumps on camera while Charlie's live on the air, throws a cigarette butt at him, and then says, S my D San Francisco during Charlie's news report.
Oh my God.
This guy yells that into the camera. Charlie's photographer, Alex Louie, was like, dude, I was actually nervous. I've never had to hit someone. I thought I might have to actually shove that guy out of the way, because I was nervous. So I don't know. It was hostile to say the least for
Yeah.
some of our crews that were out there, and that's where I do think you get a little bit of crossing the line when it comes to some of the cussing and some doing things like that. And I do want to say like that doesn't just happen at TD Garden or outside TD Garden. Like news crews out covering games like this where fans have been drinking, like it's always a risk, and there's always like some idiot who's going to come up. But like it definitely was ratcheted up like another notch in Boston. Like it was definitely like another level of what I had seen before. And then inside the arena was pretty wild. First of all, like it was the loudest sport. I tweeted on, especially game 4, I tweeted during the game, this is the loudest basketball game I've ever been to. Like
So louder than Chase Center. Like
louder. Way louder
wow.
than Chase Center. We were all talking about it in the media, media section. Like it was louder than Chase Center. We're like, wow, Chase Center fans need to bring it. And I don't know if the acoustics of TD are like a factor too, because like Chase Center is still kind of like trying to find its way, being a new venue, and like, you know what I mean? Like fans are still, I think it still doesn't quite have a full identity the way Oracle did, because it's in, this is the first NBA finals in Chase Center,
right?
Where TD Garden, has been a long established iconic venue, and the fans, are passionate fans. But I will say, like, I was shocked in game 3, the first time the FU Draymond Green chants like broke out. I was like, wow, like that's pretty aggressive. Like you don't, like, I will say going to a lot of sporting events, like you'll hear ref, you suck. Like you'll hear some things, maybe like a BS in regards to like a call, but like you don't often hear just like F-bombs dropped openly. And it wasn't just like one section of the crowd. Like there were several points in time, both games, where the entire arena, so you have to imagine like all of Chase Center, every single person is yelling "F you, Draymond Green."
You can hear it. You can hear it on TV.
Yeah, no, but like it like being there, it was just wild, because like it wasn't just like one, or like I said, it wasn't just like a certain group of fans. Like the entire arena is dropping the F-bomb, like just screaming it, and it happened several. Like I lost count. There were more than 11 anti-Draymond Green chants. And like I said, most of them were "F you, Draymond Green." Not all of them were, but I lost count. I was trying to like keep a tally during game 3, but they were just relentless. And one thing that stood out to me just about this trip is how much people in Boston hate Draymond Green. They hate him. Cyrus,
everyone hates Draymond. Everyone outside of the Bay Area hates him. Yeah, everyone.
I get that, but like, dude, people were just going to the extreme. The amount of anti-Draymond t-shirts I saw were like, I'm just saying, like, it's one thing to hate him, to tweet something about him, but like where you're like going out of your way to have like shirts printed and like paying for that and like all this other stuff. So I was like talking to fans, oh yeah, we had this printed as soon as we found out, that we were going to play the Warriors, we rushed, we did a rush t-shirt job to get this out here, and it's just like, man, like I knew people hated him, but like this is just like another level. So like Draymond sucks shirts were out there. Draymond is a B shirts were out there. FU Draymond shirts were out there being worn. So like that was like kind of an eye opener for me, because like you said, you kind of realize that people around the NBA don't like him, but like this was just like another level. There are people with Draymond big heads that had like middle fingers, and like someone had like Draymond like face palming like this on a big head. So I'm just saying, like people are going like so far. Also another thing, my husband Charlie, again, works for KPicks. He was doing a piece about like why do fans hate Draymond Green, and it cracked me up. He was asking people, if you were like choking on the street on a chicken bone and Draymond was the only person there who could possibly help you and give you the Heimlich maneuver, would you ask him for help? And across the board, everyone you talked to said no. And there's one guy who's like, I feel good about where I'm at in my life. Like I've accomplished a lot. And granted, some of it's tongue in cheek, but still, like I would die before I would ask Draymond Green for any kind of help or to even save my life.
Sorry to interrupt you, but what was the prevalent answer that people gave for disliking Draymond? I mean, I've never truly understood a good reason for hating him. They call him dirty. He's never like injured someone, at least not to the point where they're missing a game because of it. And he's outspoken, but I've never heard him say anything super controversial. What are the reasons?
People don't like him for that reason. So number one of the main reasons, that he's a loudmouth. I heard that over and over again too from people that I talk to. Can't stand him. He gets under my skin. He's a loudmouth. He's out there saying that Boston's going to win, making this prediction before the series is over, disrespecting the Heat. Like, I remember that was brought up by one guy, like, like, whatever, I'm a Celtics fan, so it's fine. But like, he just does stuff like that all the time. And he seems cocky. That's what that one guy told me. He seems cocky. He's a loudmouth. Again, people are just like, he gets under my skin. When it comes to play, a lot of people said he sucks. Like, Draymond Green sucks. Like, he's not good on the court and he has a big mouth. Like, that's like generally what it seemed like the perception was. which is interesting. And I know Draymond actually talks about this and addresses this with the media whenever like haters are brought up. And he's like, to me, that's just people who don't know basketball if they think I suck. Because, he's like, I may not score the most points on the team or even close. I may not score a lot of baskets, but like clearly they don't know the intricacies of the game if they can't see what I'm doing, leading this offense when he brings up the ball as a forward
Right.
and makes some of these passes that he makes. And then, obviously on the defensive end being, his real strength that, it's just people that don't know the game that maybe don't recognize what he's doing. And, the rebounding and all the other things that he brings to the Warriors. But so maybe it's just people that don't know ball. Maybe, maybe it's just they see what they want to see. But for me, overwhelmingly, and Charlie heard the same thing, people like, he's not good. He sucks. Whatever. He sucks and he's the loudest mouth. We can't stand him. So that was probably the most prevalent answer, I would say. And then it was brought up that he's dirty. I did hear the same thing. Some people say he's a dirty player. He's dirty. Look at what he did on, a lot of people were bringing up, I guess there's a viral video and I did see it, like that was shared by Bleacher Report and some other outlets were like, I can't remember. I think it was a free throw where he like goes and he like catches someone around the neck, or he's trying to grab a board and he catches Jason Tatum around the neck.
In game 4, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
A couple people brought that up and they're like, look at this.
Big
like,
deal.
How he plays,
Big
but
deal.
that was, used as a see, he's, a dirty player. He's not playing the right way. So those were some of the answers, wrong or right. It is kind of interesting though, because like I said, it was an eye opener for me just to see how much people actually hate him.
It's incredible. And none of those reasons to me are valid for the level of vitriol and hatred directed toward him. Like, oh no, he talks loud. Like, oh no, he's cocky. Like those are reasons for hating him. Even that play against Jason Tatum, it's subjective in calling that dirty. I mean, he was aggressive. I don't think they even called the foul on that play. Again, he's never injured someone to the point. I know he's made contact with people's faces a couple times. Where eyes got injured or got reddened, but they never came out of the game because of that. And for people who rip on his stats, again, he is an anomaly, but he also does have, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I just looked this up a second ago, I think he has 31 career triple doubles, and the Warriors are 30-1 when he scores a triple double. They've only lost one time ever when he's had a triple double. He also has a triple double. He also had a triple-double once without reaching that mark from points, meaning he had a game once where he had 4 points, 10 steals, 10 assists, 12 rebounds. That is a game that he should have gone on a quadruple-double. And I'm never going to forget that Game 7 in the 2016 finals where, they lost. But in that game, Draymond had 32 points, 15 rebounds, and came 1 assist shy of hitting a triple-double in a Game 7 of the NBA Finals. I think ultimately it's just he's won so much, and it's just this is American culture in a lot of ways. Like a lot of people in American culture, and I hate bringing race up on this show, but I think a part of it is race, because if he was a white man, I don't know if that same level of vitriol and anger would be directed toward him. I really don't. This is just my opinion on that. But it's also very sad that he elicits this level of reaction. He's a winner. He's a Hall of Famer. He's just very different. He's unique as a player in terms of his statistics. He's outspoken, but last I checked, that's not a crime in this country. And yeah, I just don't understand it, man. He's a human being. He just, he trash talks. He grew up in Saginaw, Michigan. That's a lot of people in the basketball court. That's how they roll. And for some reason, he gets picked on like this. But I do not think whatever he's done in his career is worthy of an entire arena for 2 games dropping the F-bomb. You could hear it on national TV. Mike Breen alluded to it during the Game 4 broadcast that you could hear it. It was crazy, Kylen. I don't know if you agree with anything I just said right there, but it's wild. It's wild. Well, Game 5, we're recording this on June 12th. It's now 4:30 p.m. as we're wrapping things up. And I do want to quickly mention as well, Jordan Poole had a solid Game 4 as well. Even though defensively he remains a huge liability for him.
Yeah.
Offensively, he showed up. Those 14 points were huge, especially what he did in that second quarter to give Steph Curry some vitally needed minutes on the bench. So let's hope Jordan Poole comes back and plays the way he did in the 2 wins. Kevon Looney, Steve Kerr admitted he made a mistake limiting his minutes in Game 3. We're not going to see that again. Let's hope Gary Payton II gets significant minutes. Nemanja Bjelica has proven he's worthy of playing minutes in this series. Great things happen when he plays in this postseason. What are your thoughts for Game 5? We're wrapping the show up here. What is your prediction for what is easily the biggest game of the season for the Golden State Warriors?
No doubt. My prediction is Warriors win. I think it'll be a tightly contested contest. Tightly contested contest, isn't that great? Tightly contested game. I think the Warriors are not going to let this one slip through their fingers. The championship pedigree, the momentum they have after that huge Game 4 win, and I think it'll carry over into this game. I think the Warriors win. And then I think that Game 6 in Boston is going to be a bit more of a toss-up, just given that environment and a very, very talented team with their backs against the wall. But I think the Warriors win Game 5. To piggyback off of something you mentioned, I just am cracking up about Nemanja Bjelica's defense has been elite in the postseason. I'm not even kidding. And it's funny just because he gets so much crap because he is very slow. He's a big, slow body. Not considered an elite defender, but he was killing it against Luka Doncic, and he's been incredibly effective in this series too. So, well, I don't know, his numbers maybe haven't been prolific. He's actually been really solid, and I think especially defensively he showed up, and he deserves some credit for that. I don't have any problem with him in the rotation, thus far. We'll just have to see. I like Kerr going deeper into his bench. I think that's something that needs to continue. And to me, was an issue in Game 3. The Warriors have the depth. Use it. Use it. Run the Celtics ragged. I don't think they have, they don't have the depth the Warriors have. So I like that. And I think the Warriors take it home. Game 5. I agree. Chase Center. I'll be there. Let's do it.
I agree. I think the urgency, the hunger is there. I don't think it's going to go away again this series. And we've seen what happens when the Warriors play with the utmost urgency. They win, plain and simple. And I really also believe that the Chase Center crowd is going to show up. And in the same way that the TD Garden directed all that pure negative energy toward Draymond Green and the Warriors in games 3 and 4, I think the Warriors are going to bring it back and boost Draymond Green. He's going to be carried by that home crowd. And I think they're going to let the Celtics know that we bring some noise here as well in San Francisco and the Bay Area. As amazing as the Celtics fans are, they got the passion. That organization has tremendous history of their own. But the Warriors are a storied franchise as well. And the same fans that are at Roracle are, for the most part, at Chase Center. They're incredibly knowledgeable. They love this team. Joe Lacob, hopefully hand out those tequila shots outside the gates. The fans could use it. It's a Monday. Who cares? If you're a boss out there, give your employee a day off Tuesday if necessary, so they can bring that energy Monday night at Chase Center. Make some noise, people. Kylen, this is always a pleasure when I do a show with you. And like I said, once the season's over, we'll figure out how the rotation is going to go. As you're going to be a permanent member of the show. Thank you. I'm done, I think. Anything else? Did we miss anything? Did we forget? I want to throw one last thing real quick for another shot of love for Stephen Curry. He joins LeBron James and Kobe Bryant as the only players in the NBA in the last 15 years to lead both finals teams in scoring 4 times in the same series. Stephen Curry has had a magnificent NBA Finals. Just talk about adding a whole other step, a whole other layer to his legacy. I mean, this Finals has been simply remarkable, and there's still more to come. So, did we cover everything? Are we good? I think we're good,
covered
right?
Everything. Tonight, I'm going to be back on the air at KRON 4, KRON 4 Soup Session. We're doing a 15-minute show every night during the week. Sunday nights, we've got a 30-minute show and Sports Night Live. So we're also getting busy. Join us if you want to get some Warriors content. We're out of practice today and talking to different analysts we get on our show. So the grind don't stop, Cyrus.
It doesn't. No, I mean, I got as soon as the finals are over, I got a big vacation coming. Yeah. And fans, one more time, bring that noise. So I'm going to be hosting a show Monday, a post-game reactionary show like I've been doing throughout the NBA Finals. Kevin Dana is going to join me on Tuesday. I'm going to see if Gary St. Jean will join me as well. Kylen, you're going to be joining me again this week. But this show will carry over into Game 5 of the NBA Finals, and let's hope for more Golden State Warriors success, everyone. Kylen, thank you so much. Follow Kylen Mills on Twitter at Kylen Mills, KRON 4 Sports anchor reporter, multimedia journalist, whatever your official title is there, you do it all. You're the jack of all trades. You're the Swiss Army knife of KRON Sports Sports. And you can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow, and this program on Twitter at Locked On Dubs. Thank you, everyone. Later.